Welcome to tonight's show. So I'm going to jump in and talk about Tom Lee's price prediction for Ethereum at the end of the year, despite the fact that we're getting shellacked right now. And then we're also going to get into looking at MSTR and historically in the last week of October, how MSTR has done to see if there could be a recovery for MSTR in October. And I'm going to get into mNAV a little bit. Big questions about is issuing shares in the marketplace dilutive to the shareholders, and I'm going to show you some data on this tonight. So let's jump in. Not tax advice, not financial advice, not legal advice, and let's rock and roll and take a look at BMNR first and then into MSTR. So BitMine Immersion Technologies, this was yesterday. They bought $417 million of Ethereum, adding 104,000 ETH to the treasury. Tom Lee is still stacking at the bottom. And we've also got the question here from the BMNR bulls, is the bull market loading? Let's hope so, because it's been a sobering week for all of us. Deploying 417 million to Ethereum. So they're buying at the bottom, and there's just good data on this of buying at the bottom, 104,000 ETH, 417 million. They've now got 3 million ETH in their treasury, valued around $12 billion, depending on what ETH's price point is at, and it dropped today. And the goal is to acquire 5% of Ethereum's total supply. So there's a recent podcast I'm going to show you about 60 seconds of it where Tom talks about his year-end prediction for Ethereum, and I'm going to show this to you right now.
I think the year-end ranges will be for both Bitcoin and ETH.
So I'm going to stay consistent. $250,000 Bitcoin, $10,000 ETH.
$10,000 ETH. You think ETH can do more than a doubling in 2.5 months?
Yep.
All right. Tom, Tom, you dropped off really quick, but the question is end of year price targets. We got 2 months, 3 weeks before December 31st. What do you think ETH is going to be? What do you think Bitcoin's going to be?
Yeah, but by year end, our target for Bitcoin is 200 to 250,000. And for Ethereum, somewhere between 10 and 12,000 ETH.
Even higher than Arthur. So that's basically what Arthur just said.
I mean, if Tom says it, this is going to happen.
Is that not a little bit fast, Tom? So like I said about this last year of price action, especially Bitcoin over the last 3 years, it's just been slowly incremental up. If you're telling me ETH is going to do like almost a 2.5x in 2 months, to me, that is no longer incremental. That is starting to become closer to a blow off top territory, which I don't want. I want the slow incremental price rise for years. If it did do a 2.5x, wouldn't you be worried about it kind of just being a little bit too fast?
I mean, as you know, Ethereum's basically been basing for 4 years now, just broke out of the range. So to me, it wouldn't be a blow off top, but rather seeking essentially price discovery at a new level. And then at a time when I think there would be a lot of fundamental things happening next year. So I don't think it's the top, but I'm sure, but it is a big level. Be a big level, but a happy level.
There you go. Hearing from Tom Lee. I think, they're very, very bullish, obviously. He's still maintaining his position and his price predictions today, whether before the crash or after, he still maintains the same position. And that is the news. And so you got Tom Lee being bullish about Ethereum for the year end and also Bitcoin, despite the fact that the market is down right now. Now, also looking at the market being down, they're buying at the bottom. So if you look at this acquisition, 104,000 ETH, 417 million at the bottom of the market. I trade. So this week, I picked up about 210 shares of BMNR trading. And so the idea of actually picking up more shares at the bottom when it does recover and go up, picking up those shares is incredibly valuable to get it lower, because my original cost basis for BMNR was $60 when I bought in months back. And I've been trading it down over the last 3 months to where my cost basis is below $48 now, and probably near $47 with all the trading that I've been doing. So you can still pick up at the bottom. I'm not giving any financial advice, but when it rebounds, picking up these shares and doing the trading at the bottom has been very, very beneficial for me personally. So I hope anybody who's doing their own trading or investing, not financial advice, but if anybody's been able to pick it up at a lower price point, good for them. I was on the phone with somebody who watches this channel the other day, and he picked up BMNR at $45. Good for him. So well done for those of you who are continuing to stack and pick up. And also, if you want more data, you can go down below. My book, Money Game, is down below. Goes into BMNR, MSTR. I'm also doing a live webinar next week. So if you go get the book for free down below, you can just download it. You'll then get notified of a webinar that we're doing. And I'm going to teach my trading strategy of how I'm trading on a daily basis and picking up more and more BMNR every single day. So that will be an in-depth training coming up Thursday this week. So you can go down below. When you click to get the book, you'll get on my mailing list for free. And then when you're on the mailing list, you'll get notified of the actual training coming up. So if you're interested in trading and learning how I'm doing anywhere from 5 to 10% a week in my trading, then you'd like to go check that out. So I hope it serves you. Okay, it's down below in the link. So the good news on bullishness from Tom Lee. I mean, they're not going to change their path at this point from what it seems. I'm not as bullish as them as a $250,000 Bitcoin or a $10,000 or $12,000 ETH. I still think that an $8,000 ETH is possible, but they're super bullish in their price predictions. So there you go. We've got people talking about the dilution of shares. So this is a big conversation about critics keep asking, is BitMine diluting shareholders with every share issuance? Same conversations happened about MSTR over the last, year, 2 years. And so it's always the question. And so the basic point here from the BMNR bulls is that there's no real dilution above 1.0 NAV. If shares are issued when the market net asset value is over 1.0, it's a win. So when you look at BMNR right now, they're at about 1.3 mNAV right now. Strategy is about 1.22 or so. Strategy dropped down to like 1.16. So anytime they're issuing shares above 1.0, it means they're issuing shares at a premium. And when they issue those shares at a premium, they're able to pick up more ETH if it's BMNR stacking ETH. And if it's strategy stacking Bitcoin, they're able to pick up more Bitcoin per share. So for the shareholders, it's actually very accretive. People don't like it in the short term because they think, they're issuing shares, they're diluting the shares, but it's super accretive on Ethereum per share and Bitcoin per share with these strategies that BMNR and MSTR are running. There's just no question about that. So those who are going to hold the stock longer term, when they buy those shares at a premium, that's locked in, and I'm not saying the gains are locked in, but the Bitcoin per share and the ETH per share is locked in. Okay. So the goal is grow ETH per share is what they're saying here with the BMNR bulls who posted this. And BMNR's mission is to stack more Ethereum. Issuing shares above 1.0 lets them buy even more ETH. Stopping would actually be bearish. So this is just a nice comment of somebody putting this on there to explain this, because this is a constant debate. And I think that people who don't understand the mNAV clearly don't understand what Tom and Michael Saylor are actually doing. So there you have it. So there's a little explanation. And if you're new to mNAV, it's basically when you look at the net asset value of Ethereum on the balance sheet of BMNR, or the net asset value of Bitcoin on the balance sheet of Strategy, you take their value of their Bitcoin and you minus out the liabilities, or the value of the Ethereum and you minus out the liabilities and the debt, and you get the net asset value of the Bitcoin or the Ethereum. And then the stock trades at a premium to that. So when it's above 1.0 and they're issuing shares at a premium, which allows them to get more ETH per share or more Bitcoin per share, which is very, very, very good for the shareholders. So there's no dilution when the math compounds in your favor, right? So here's where the number stands today. You've got the ETH reserve at BitMine, 3.03 million. You got their market cap. They have 2.51% of the supply, and their earnings per share growth has been 189%, which is pretty big. And the mNAV is about 1.29 if you see it here in the lower left. So that's the confusion around dilution. BitMine's issuance model isn't like fiat dilution, right? It's not like fiat dilution. It's what Tom Lee calls accretive issuance. And Saylor's been talking about this for a long time. And so it is accretive for the shareholders. So when mNAV is above 1.0, every new share issued allows BitMine to buy even more Ethereum, meaning each share actually gains more Ethereum exposure. So when you hear ETH per share and they're increasing ETH per share, or when you hear strategy talking about we've increased Bitcoin per share by 25% this year, that's their goal, is to do that for their shareholders. So that's why 1.0 mNAV is the key threshold. Above it equals growth mode. Below it is protection mode, right? So we're above it still. Now, you look at the mNAV for BMNR, and it's been consistent 1.3, 1.4 since its inception. And strategy is a different story. Its mNAV's been 2, 3, 4. So to see it fall to 1.22, what have you, is obviously a shocker because we've seen it that high up. But it also mirrors the potential for mNAV during more bullish times. And I'm not saying we're in a bullish time right now, because we clearly are not in a bullish week right now, but those times can change. And so it's important to take a look at this, because this is one of the primary strategies that these companies are actually executing. So BitMine's model flips traditional finance logic. Instead of debt or dilution destroying value, it actually creates more ETH per share. So same thing with strategy. Instead of the typical debt or dilution with traditional companies that will issue stock, or instead of debt, which would destroy value, when they're issuing shares to get more ETH per share or more Bitcoin per share for strategy, it is actually the opposite. It's accretive, which means it's good. So you look at the surge of BMNR's Ethereum holdings from 163,000 ETH in July to over 3 million ETH by mid-October. Pretty fascinating. And you just look at this growth. I mean, look at this growth week by week by week by week. Does it look familiar? It looks a lot like strategy of what they've done over the years. And if you're new to the channel, mind you that the accumulation of Ethereum by BMNR is at a rate about 10 times faster than strategy was able to accumulate Bitcoin. So for me, if you saw my first video on this months ago, I called this the next MSTR. That BMNR is the next MSTR. So that's my belief on it, which is why I picked up a whole bunch of BMNR, and I still hold my strategy. I love them both. I think they're phenomenal. I think their leaders are incredible. So here's where the top 5 most liquid crypto treasury names from yesterday. This is from the other day. So when you look at BMNR, the daily trading volume is 3.9 billion. Strategy second at 3.2 billion. And then you look at these other companies that have ETH or Bitcoin on their balance sheet, like SharpLink. It's not even a close second. It's 10 times less. Not even 10 times less, like way, way, way less. That's massively less. Okay. So it's maybe a factor of 10. Yeah, about 10. And then Bit Digital is like a factor of much less than that. So you take a look at this, and the trading volume is super high. Institutions like this. People are in and out. It's super liquid because they're trading it all the time. And for BMNR, I trade it every single day, and I love trading it. I picked up a crap load of shares over the last 2.5 months trading it. I started off putting my own capital in it, and then I've just traded it. And I probably, over the last 3 months trading it, I probably increased my shares by 40% just trading it. So you can absolutely crush it when you know how to trade it. And because it's so volatile, I actually love trading it. Again, if you want access to my, I have a webinar training coming up Thursday. You can go down below and get my free book, Money Game. And when you download the book, you'll get on my list, and then we'll notify you of the webinar training where I'm going to teach you my trading strategy. And I'm going to show you exactly what I do on a daily basis, because when you're trading BMNR, you'll see 5 or 6% swings multiple times throughout the day. And so the ability to pick up great returns on a daily basis is there. And my win ratio on it is 13 of the last 14 weeks I've been profitable on it. So my win ratio is like a 90 something percent trading the stock. So to me, it's like, I feel like it's one of the easiest things to trade. And I feel like it's a gold mine right now because it's so volatile. And it's one of the most highly traded stocks, as you see. And so when you take a look at it, it's like, wow, it's like you can pick up massive returns on a daily basis. So I love it. I have a blast doing it. So if you want to learn about it, I'll teach you about it in my training coming up next week. You can go get on my list. Okay. It's down below. And you'll get my money game book, which I'm really proud of. I spent like 6 months researching this book. I think you'll dig it. Okay, cool. So back to the data for BitMine, and then we'll get into strategy here in a second. BitMine's daily volume hit 3.91 billion, which I just shared with you. You have strategy in second. And this is their trading volume. They trade anywhere from 2.5 billion to 3.5 billion on a daily. So it's huge. So this was old news on this. Like Tom Lee hinted that a Trump speech and sudden crypto whale move could be bullish for risk assets like Bitcoin and equities. I don't even know what happened. I tuned into the Trump speech the other day. It was like 30 minutes late. I was like, I'm out of here, right? But a crypto whale had opened up a big short 30 minutes before Trump's tweet, and then apparently was going long afterwards. All of this to me is just a little bit of speculation, but it's still news that people are posting, okay? If that happens, could week number 43 be MSTR's turning point? So let's look at MSTR here and look at week number 43. So if you look at historically, MSTR weekly returns in October, and week 43, which would be October 20th coming up, the historic returns in October have been 2020, 11.9%, negative in 2021, 2022, 20%, 2023, 16%, and 2024, 8.54%. So we'll see if history repeats itself. At this point, anything can happen because there's such a different environment right now, particularly with the institutions pouring in. You look at strategy, 50 to 60% of the people who hold the stock are institutions. You even watch strategy move today. Bitcoin dropped, and then strategy didn't drop as much. It was up for a little bit. So it went down obviously to like 283, but then it went up and Bitcoin was still low. So it's like, it's a weird movement that we're seeing because strategy wasn't going as low as Bitcoin today, which is a change. So we'll see what happens in the last week of October. We took a beating this last week, and Friday, it's only 1 week from the beating. And if you look at the metrics right now, the beating's pretty comparable. Last Friday and where we ended up now this Friday. So it's a comparable beating. It's not like that much has changed. So it's going to take maybe this past week that we just had that's ending tonight, and maybe some of next week for people to maybe mentally recover a little bit on this and for us to start on the upward trend. I am still optimistic that there's going to be an upward trend, and I continue to maintain that optimism. Also, a lot of what happens in the markets is group agreement. So everybody can go into fear and flip out and say nothing's going to happen and we're all going to lose. Or, we could start spreading the word that, historically, this is a good couple of months. You still look at the sound fundamentals of strategy and BMNR and what great companies they are. And you look at some of the leaders and how bullish they are, and they continue to deploy their strategies. Like BMNR is buying on the drop. Strategy is buying every single week. They continue to move their company and their treasuries forward. So it's good optimism and it's good leadership. And so I would hope that the leadership turns into some nice market gains for us, not financial advice. So could we see MSTR get back on path? Let's hope so. I mean, it's hit a low. I remember when Trump first announced the tariffs back in, what was that, February, March? Remember, we dropped all the way down to 233. And then within 30 to 45 days or so, we sprung way back up to over 400. So anything can happen. And I am still holding my strategy. I don't have a crystal ball of what's going to happen, but I'm still holding on to my strategy, and I'm still trading BMNR and holding on to my BMNR. And let's let it roll is my plan for me. So according to the new data from Saylor, strategy stock has delivered an 85% annualized return since it adopted Bitcoin as its treasury reserve. So pretty interesting. You look at the top performers on the chart. You got MSTR, you got NVIDIA, you got Bitcoin, you got Tesla. That's higher than NVIDIA's 71% and even above Bitcoin's own 54%. Now, of course, this is over a longer time horizon, but it's pretty interesting data. So when you look at the leaders stacking up, MSTR 85, NVIDIA 71, Bitcoin 54%, Tesla 34%, Google 26%, Meta 21%, Microsoft 19%, gold 15%, S&P 500 14%. So and gold's making new highs, so gold's numbers are actually different. So there you have it, the compound annual growth rate of it, strategy from 123 price point to 298. But it's actually more like 291 or 289 we closed at today. So this is yesterday's data. And then Bitcoin obviously is not at 112,000. It dropped to 107,000. All right, pretty shocking, right? And gold hits record highs. I think it's even above 4,250 now. So we will see if Bitcoin trails and to see if Bitcoin actually laps up some of that M2 and makes a run up in the next 2 months. And I am hopeful that we will see a run up. All right, this is yesterday's data, so I'm not going to show this. So according to Bitwise's latest report, the number of public companies holding Bitcoin surged 38.7% this quarter. So it shows that a lot of public companies are getting in the game and holding Bitcoin, and that's a big, big increase. And you look at the corporations now own over 1 million Bitcoin after buying the most Bitcoin ever in Q3. That's about 4.87% of the total Bitcoin supply. So pretty interesting, right? Pretty interesting. So total corporate holdings, 1 million Bitcoin, 4.9% of all Bitcoin ever mined. Fascinating data, all right? So that's the story on what's going on. Bitcoin is down more than 3% in October as of today's fall. And we will see what happens in the future moving forward. So, what do I think is going to happen? I mean, I'm just one opinion here on the internet, and I'm clearly thinking the price is going to go up over the next couple months. But they're solid, and they're solid stocks. They're solid leadership. They have solid strategies. I hold BitMine and I hold strategy because they're the best and they're the top. There's nobody closer and better than BMNR in terms of owning Ethereum, and there's nobody closer to strategy than what Saylor's doing with it and holding Bitcoin. So we're going to hear a little bit, which is interesting, from Saylor, who's endorsing Tom Lee now and really acknowledging and recognizing him. So take a look at this.
Becomes commercialized, institutionalized, legitimized. Tom Lee has emerged as probably the most visible, influential spokesperson in the entire Ethereum ecosystem in a matter of months, maybe a matter of weeks. What does that represent? Well, first of all, they have $10 billion of capital. Second of all, Tom Lee is part of the Wall Street establishment. He was never part of the crypto establishment. You saw Wall Street merges with the crypto economy, capital flows because it trusts Tom Lee. And then the next thing you know, you have Tom Lee having conversations with the early Ethereum entrepreneurs, with the Vitaliks of the world, and the like. And what's interesting there is that entire movement becomes commercialized, institutionalized, legitimized, rationalized, becomes a bit older, a bit more credible.
So it's fascinating just to see how these two have sprung up in the space. You look at Saylor, it was not connected at all to Wall Street, 2 years ago. And in 2020, he was when he started stacking Bitcoin, but he's really become prominent in the last couple of years. And so you look at how he's sprung up and how he's become a voice for Bitcoin all across the world. And look at how strategy has become a dominant leader in the space, encouraging many, many other people to get into Bitcoin. And then you look at how Tom Lee has adopted Saylor's playbook and how much faster BMNR is growing than strategy ever grew in terms of the accumulation of ETH for BMNR on their balance sheet versus what strategy did on their balance sheet. Now, ETH, they don't have as much ETH as strategy has Bitcoin, but their rate of accumulation is 10 times faster. And that's due to Saylor really paving the path and setting the leadership and giving the playbook out to people. So it's really fascinating, and it's cool to see them working together. This is not the first time you've heard Saylor talk about Tom Lee. They've had pictures at conferences together, and they're working as teammates in this, because when you look at Bitcoin and Ethereum, they're very, very different plays. But, you know, when you look at these price predictions coming in from Tom Lee, they clearly are aware of something or have knowledge that we don't have. And the knowledge that Tom Lee would have is he's connected and he's talking to Wall Street. So he's intimately involved with the moves that are being made. And it's no secret that Wall Street is moving onto the blockchain. And he's a big reason and a voice for why this is happening. And he has their attention. He has their trust. And if you look at the number of companies, if you haven't watched my previous videos, the number of companies that are actually building on the blockchain, I mean, big players, you know, the JP Morgans, the Morgan Stanleys, the BlackRocks. I mean, BlackRock's already on the blockchain, guys. They already tokenized their money market fund. I mean, this stuff is happening right now. So I just know the future is incredibly bright for Ethereum, for BMNR, for Bitcoin, for strategy. I don't know what's going to happen over the next 2 months because there's so much uncertainty right now in the markets, but I still am bullish for the fourth quarter of this year. And I'm going to maintain that position because I believe something's going to happen in a good way. And so there's got to be some data that Tom is going off. And if you missed the video earlier, so the interviewer said to him, hey, don't you think that's a little bit of a blow off top for Ethereum to go all the way up to $10,000 or $12,000 before the end of the year? It sounds kind of crazy. And the interviewer didn't say that, but the intention was like, it sounds a little bit nuts, doesn't it? To me, it sounds nuts. I mean, that's from where it is right now. If it was going to go to 12,000, that's a 3x. That's a 3x. And so, you know, Tom's point was it's been building a nice base over the last several years. And if you look at Ethereum, I mean, it's not even at where its all-time high was years ago. So it's got a long ways to go to get there. Tom does not think it would be a blow-off top. He thinks it would just be the train's been moving this way, and it's finally moving in the last 3, 4, 5 months for Ethereum. And so he's like, okay, so it's finally moving, and it needs to go where it's supposed to be already. And if you've watched my previous videos, you can look at the price ratio of ETH to Bitcoin. And I showed some historical averages of when Bitcoin's price is this, Ethereum's price is this. And so the ratio of ETH's price to Bitcoin's price is well below the average that it's been over the last 6, 7 years. So we'll see if it catches back up to that ratio so that ETH can go up and BMNR can go up. And then strategy needs to do something and turn around. So if the chart is right that person just shared, that I reshared to you guys, maybe we'll see some action at the end of October. And I would certainly believe that we're going to see something in November. Rate cuts are like almost a lock. So we're going to see another rate cut. That's like a 90-something% certain. So a rate cut would also help and bring some bullishness into the market as well. So let's see what happens. Keep the faith on this. You know, I know it's tough times, so I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's obviously nobody likes to sit here watching strategy at 283. I don't think anybody would have ever predicted this for the month of October for strategy to be dropped to 282 today and now be sitting at 289. I don't think BitMine being down at 50 is like a huge drop, because to me, BitMine's been around 60 over the last several months. It dropped all the way down to 40, but 2.5 months ago it was at 60. It went up to 72 3 months ago when I was watching the stock, and then I bought in lower, but it was up at 72 at one point. So this thing can move when it has legs. Don't think that it can't. It's not just that the stock went up to 161 when it first came out. Like, it was at 72 3 months ago, and it didn't nearly have the traction that it has right now. So for this thing to move and run is not uncommon at all. And strategy also, for it to move and run, we've seen it when the news gets bullish. So let's hope for a swift strategy recovery, because strategy needs to go straight up and vertical. You know, for everybody to be very satisfied and happy and be like relieved, strategy just needs to go straight up. It needs to freaking launch. We need to see a run up to 400 so we can get some of the hope back in, and for people to be like, oh my God, it can actually happen. You know, even the high threes again would make people happy. And for BMNR, you know, it being down to 50 is not a shocker or a surprise. I would have expected to be higher now in October. So I do think that BMNR can hit over $100. Somebody asked what my prediction was for BMNR at the end of the year. I think it is possible it could hit over $100 by the end of the year. So we'll see if that happens. All right. So I hope you guys have a tremendous rest of the day, and I hope you sleep well on, the news of being rough this week. I hope you still sleep well, and you get optimistic for next week and the weeks to come. And I do hope that things turn around for everybody. Everybody's got different buy-ins where they bought in the stock. Everybody's got different goals. Everybody's got different average prices where they bought in, and I want everybody to win, and I hope that you win, and I hope it works out well for you and your families. Okay, so hope this serves you. If you do want to get my book, it's down below. If you want to know more about strategy, more about BMNR, I have entire chapters devoted to it. If you want to understand the mNAV, it's all broken down in there. If you want to understand the history of money, if you want to understand how the Federal Reserve works, if you want to take a look at like what is the true effect of taxes and inflation and asset inflation and management fees on your wealth, go check out the book. It's really good. Also talk a little bit about my trading strategy in there as well. And so you can go snag that. That's the best way for you to, one, if you want to support the channel and support me, the best way would be to go receive my gift because it's a free gift to you, and then share it with somebody else. And then if you would like some help on trading and you want to learn it, I'm doing a live trading workshop on Thursday. I won't be doing it on YouTube. This is not the venue for it. But for those of you who go download the book, you'll be on my email list. And then we will send you a notification of when the live trading workshop will be. And I'll just show you, what it is I'm doing. I'll pull up the charts. I'll show you what I'm doing. I'll show you how I trade it. I'll show you how I pick up 5 to 10% returns in a week. To be very conservative, I'm doing 5% in a week. So I'll just downplay it. And so it works. And I'll show you what I'm doing, what I'm using, how I'm using it. I'll give credit to the sources of the tech that I'm using when I show you on the webinar. And I think you'll really like it. It's been a fun game for me. I've been in financial services since I was 21 years old. You might not know anything about me, you might not care, but at 21 years old, I started out in financial services. And so I was the one in the course room asking all the questions of like, why is the mutual fund fees so high? Like, why do they pay 1%? And why do people want to lock their money up in a 401k? And I don't get it. Why is 10% returns in the market good when people are paying 20 and 30% on their credit cards? It doesn't make sense. So I went on a search for 21 years old for the truth and went outside the company that I worked for. I went outside that company. And I started searching and finding other financial systems and got fascinated with how banks make money and how money gets moved, and was fascinated with inflation at that time. And so at a very young age, I was asking the questions on a search to find the truth. And then when Bitcoin, arrived, I picked up my first several Bitcoin at $2,000 and $3,000 and just fell in love with it, and fell in love with the fact that comparable data of traditional finance, which I lived inside traditional finance. And at the time, I was searching outside traditional finance because I didn't believe it. And so I was searching for other systems and models that I found that were marginally better, but still there wasn't the truth there. And when I found Bitcoin, I really discovered that this is true money. This is the real money. And this is not the things that are marketed through Wall Street. And these are not the things that are marketed to people. And I started just running all kinds of fascinating models like, what if you put your money into Bitcoin versus putting your money into a house? And it's fascinating just to see, like, if I had to put a deposit down on a house for, if it's a $2 million house, it's, $400,000. If it's $1 million house, it's $150,000. And then I got to pay the interest and pay the mortgage. And then you stack that up against an investment, and Bitcoin blows the doors off of it. So it's interesting how across America, around the world, all these things that have been marketed, you get the house, the American dream, the middle class, the car, and 10%, 12% rates of return in the stock market. And that's the middle class trap. It's literally the middle class trap. And it's sad. It's very, very, very sad. We have a system that is not set up to help you win. It's not set up that way at all. And when you see how the banks work and the fundamental, all of this is in my book, by the way, you should just go read it. But when you see fundamentally how the economy works, and how the banks, when you get a car loan from the bank, and when you get a house loan from the bank, they bundle up all your loans and then they sell them off to investors. And the reason they do that is they want to get the debt off their balance sheet, because the moment you do a loan, let's say for $1 million or $100,000, they just type it into the screen. $100,000 loan to Joe. Boom. And they have that loan now, and it's on their sheets. It's on their books, right? And so what they want to do is they want to unload the loans as fast as possible, because if they unload the loans to somebody else, they can then issue more loans and make more money, right? So they bundle up the loans, your car loans and my car loans, and I don't have car loans, but car loans and house loans and all that different stuff. And they bundle it up, all people's different loans, and then they package up and they sell it to investors. And then an investor will come in and buy like, you know, all these loans and give them like $100 million down, and then they'll get interest paid out to them. And so the bank recoups the $100 million. Now they got money in, they offload the loan, and they're paying interest now out to the investor that bought the loans from them. And now they go out and issue more loans, and they type it into the screen, and they go to the next person, and the next person, next person. And it's a very like, it's a magician system. It's magic. There's no real product that's provided. It's numbers on a screen, and it's actually ridiculous. It's actually fundamentally ridiculous, the way our systems run. And if you look at that, that is the mirror of a bigger problem of how the Federal Reserve actually works. Because when the U.S. Treasury, and I'm putting this in simple terms, go check the sources on it. But when the U.S. Treasury needs money, which is U.S. needs money, they talk about treasuries like, hey, we're going to issue some treasury bills or treasury bonds. Dude, all that is a loan. Like, it's fancy words. I'm going to issue a treasury bond. No, you need a loan. That's what it is. And who do they get the loan from? In a lot of the cases, the loan comes from banks. So the bank gives them the loan. This is how it goes. The banks, private banks give them the loan. Yeah, private banks give them the loan. And then the banks, same model, very similar model, right? It's systemic. It's a systemic disease. So the banks give the U.S. Treasury the loan. It's an IOU. It's like, dude, it ain't a treasury bond. You can call it whatever you want. It's a damn loan, right? If I was going down to Johnny back in Jersey where I grew up in a loan shark, yo, Johnny, I need some free money, man. I need a loan, right? He's going to hit me for some interest. That's what's happening, okay? So U.S. Treasury gets the loan, and then the banks don't want to hold the loan on their balance sheet for too long. So who comes in and buys off the loan? The Fed. And how does the Fed buy off the loan? They print the money. That's how it works. They print the money. They buy off the loan. The banks pick up a spread on the money just for holding the money for a short period of time. They pick up a spread. Fed buys off the loan. Fed takes the loan. Now who's the U.S. government in debt to? Now they owe the money back to the Fed. So when you look at like systemically how this and this is, you know, happening all around the world. This isn't just a U.S. problem, right? Obviously we have the Fed here, but this isn't just a U.S. problem. So when you look systemically how money works, how in a world of magic screens and bundling up your loans and selling them to investors, and everybody's making money off your money. It's a very, very parasitic system. And so while I talk here about, hey, we have Wall Street moving on to the blockchain, like, it's not because I'm a fan of it. I'm not a fan of Wall Street. It's just the reality that that's what's happening. That's where the money's moving. And why do they want to do it? Because they want to go make more money. And if the blockchain's open 24/7, 365, and it opens up global borders. So now everyone's their customer. They're not just limited to their local or national area. Everyone's their customer. So they're going to where the money is. They're not stupid. That's how they play the game. And then, at the end of the day with this money printing, who do you think pays? You do. I do. We pay through taxes. And then you pay through invisible theft, inflation. So when you go to spend your money, and you go to spend your money at the supermarket a year later, and you're like, why is everything so much more expensive? Or you go to buy that house that you want, and you're like, oh, yeah, why I want to go buy that house. I mean, look at the house, the historic index for houses in the United States. For decades, houses have been going up by 4.27% a year. And that's just decades. Over the last several decades, it's more like 5, 6, 7% on houses going up. And none of that, the increase in house value, is not included in the CPI. So when Fed Powell comes on and he's like, hey, inflation is 3%, he's not lying. He's telling the truth. But they're not including the home value going up. You see? So all of these things, like somebody wants to go buy a house and a house is going up by 5% a year and they're saving up for 10 years. Well, 10 years later, that house went up by 50%, man. On $1 million house, that's now worth $1.5 million or more. Compound, when you look at it compounded, more it's worth. So this is not a game that one can get ahead in with traditional finance. It is just not possible. Mathematically, it does not work. When you look at a 10% rate of return in the stock market and you take out 3% inflation, it's a 7% rate of return. Take out taxes, it's a 5% rate of return. If you're in mutual funds, 401ks, or you have a financial advisor and they're taking a piece of your money, a 1% management fee over 30 years can wipe out literally 20, 30, 40% of your wealth, 20 to 30% of your wealth. Right? So you take out management fees, and then also you have to factor in asset inflation. So when you want to go buy that house that you want to go buy, it just got more expensive. So your money doesn't spend like it would normally spend or buy what it would normally buy. You want to send your kid to college, go look at that index, 4.67% a year, and the college is going up. And that's on an average of the schools. Look at some of the higher end schools. They're going up by way more. And all those numbers in the CPI, a very small percentage of colleges are weighted in the CPI, guys. So in terms of the weighting in the basket, a very small percentage of the weighting is for college tuition. And it doesn't include in there board and room and books and food and not, don't even get me started on the college loans that they're printing money into the economy and just putting it on the screen and issuing these loans to kids at a low interest rate. And now they're in debt and there's lots of money in the economy and that's pushing up the prices. I mean, it is ridiculous. It is ridiculous, ridiculous, ridiculous. It is a broken system. It is a pathetic system. And it's good that we are learning about things like BMNR, things like MSTR, because with these types of assets, like, again, nobody knows what's going to happen in the short run, but over the long term, these types of assets are they're a dream. You know, they're a dream. They're a wonderful thing because it's the new world of digital finance that gives, you know, the middle-class person on the street a chance. So we need to understand these things. We need to understand the blockchain. We need to understand Bitcoin. We need to understand Ethereum. I was talking to a guy who's part of my my trading and investing group the other day. He's like, yeah, I just want to know the things to put my money in. And I said, at the end of the day, what you really want is knowledge, because knowledge is confidence. And so, like, you show me a person who has knowledge, you could have somebody refer to you, hey, go put your money in Bitcoin, and your confidence will be low because your knowledge is low. And if your knowledge is low and your confidence is low, your action will be low. So you'll be like, oh, I'll put a little bit of money into it. But one who has the knowledge and the confidence will make decisions that look to another person like they're crazy. But to the one who has the knowledge and confidence, they're putting the chips on the table in a non-casino way. They're putting actual chips on the table. Be like, I'm betting on this thing that I know in the long run is a sure thing. So that's how I feel about MSTR. That's how I feel about BMNR. Now, it's not going to change me from taking profits at the end of the year. I'll still take profits. I'm going to hold on to my Bitcoin. I will take some profits on BMNR and MSTR, and we'll see what happens in the next 3 months. So that is my sermon for the night. Again, that's why I wrote the book. You know, I think the book Money Game that I wrote it to explain this to people, because when you sit down and have a conversation with people about these topics, they just don't know. You know, I'm surrounded by successful entrepreneurs who have successful businesses. I have a whole nother brand that helps people grow their businesses, and even successful entrepreneurs that are doing extremely well in their business don't have this knowledge. And so you do, and I do. And so it's our responsibility to get out there and spread it, because if we continue to go into agreement with the system and we continue to just sit there with our hands in the air, it's okay that you charge me 20 to 30% credit card. It's okay that the stock market's going to do just 12% over the long run. It's okay that there's $40 trillion in the 401k plans, $40 trillion. It's okay that there's $40 trillion that you get maybe 10 to 12% in your 401k plan, and they're pooling your funds. They pool your funds, and they too loan out your money. So when they're making a 2x, a 3x sometimes, maybe a 4x, even a 5x in some cases on your funds, and you're piecing off 12% a year. What kind of society is that, man? Come on. That's how the game's played. And so the more knowledge one can have and the more people we get understanding the digital revolution, understanding Bitcoin, because it is scarce and it is finite. And it is just like the future for Bitcoin is done, man. The future's done. right? It is a given. It is a certainty. Like Bitcoin is the future. Okay, that is my belief, not financial advice for anybody to go buy it, but I know this in every cell of my bone. I knew this in 2020 when I called my brother on the phone and it was $7,000. And I'm like, I'm going all in, dude. I'm going in, man. I knew. And I still know it today when it's at $107,000. Okay. So at the end of the day, we all need to understand this and get knowledge of how it works. Go watch some of my previous videos. But if you want a breakdown of how it actually works, how Ethereum works, how Bitcoin works, I put it in a 5th grade level because that's the way that I learn. And I put it in my book, and go read it. Go flip to the chapter on Bitcoin. And you really want to understand Bitcoin, it's in there. Go flip to the chapter on Ethereum. You want to understand it, it's in there. But these are fundamental technologies that we have to understand and that we have to educate the world on. All right. So I hope this serves you. I'm very excited. In a couple months, I have my own trading software coming out called Money Game, and it is literally a game. Like your 5th grade son or daughter could play it. And there's no clunkiness. You don't get on with the crazy charts and this. And like I was showing my design team, I was like, hey, look at the charts here. And my designers were like, I feel like I'm in a hospital room looking at charts in a hospital. Because most trading technology, God love it because it works, but at the end of the day, it's not aesthetic. And for 99% of the population, it doesn't work for them because they don't understand the trading game. And so we created a really aesthetic platform to where within 3 minutes of creating your profile for free, again, there will be a subscription, but you have a free profile you can create. The moment you create a free profile, you're in and you're trading within minutes. And it's a game, and we've gamified the process. I don't want to give it all away because our idea is so unique and it's so fucking cool that I want to make it available to the masses. I could sit here all day long and just trade and make money like I do every single day trading, but my mission is help. I want to help people. And when you look at, there was this great book I read years ago, and it talked about wine, and it talked about the reality that people go and they walk into a store and they know nothing about wine, and you see all these different bottles on the wall, and you're just in total confusion because you're not a wine connoisseur, and you're like, I just want a good damn bottle, but you got so many choices, And when I get on some of these trading platforms to trade money and look at things today, like there's so many options. You could choose from 1,000 different indicators on. There's so many choices. Like all I want to do is walk out with a bottle of wine. And so as I was creating my trading platform, I'm like, all I want to do is walk out with some money. That's it. I don't care about your language of how you explain XYZ to 2 squared P. I don't care about your language. I'll learn your language so I can put it in the 3rd grade and then give it to people in the 3rd grade because I want it in the 3rd grade. So I've taken all the trading language and I've gotten rid of it. And it's like, okay, the trade's heating up. Yeah, it's hot. Okay, it's really hot. It's lightning hot. Go. And people can trade and do the same damn thing I do, making 5% a week, man, without all the techno mumbo jumbo. Okay. So ultimately, I want to free mankind from this system. I want to free people from the nomenclature, meaning the vocabulary that is used in these industries that I think is just designed to confuse people, man. I just believe, I'm like, who designed this vocabulary, man? Who? And I want to help people. So when the trading software comes out, I'll let you guys know. It's not out, but when it comes out, you guys can go on and you can test it all out for free and check it out. Okay. All right. Hope you all do well and have an amazing rest of the night. And let's win, man. Let's just win. Let's get more and more knowledgeable. Let's get more and more people understanding Bitcoin, Ethereum, MSTR, BMNR. Let's get the movement going and let's help people because it is an ugly world out there. It makes the world let people walking around with the smiles and the selfies and it all looks good on social media. And it's a rough time people are having right now. Let's call it what it is. There's beautiful people in the world, but it is ugly right now. Okay. And it's a rough time for people. And so let's give them some hope. Let's give them some help. Let's give them some help. And sometimes people have a hard time receiving help, but be persistent and give them the help because they sure deserve it. Okay. People sure deserve it. Hope you guys have a great one. We'll see you on the other side and have a great night's sleep and just know I'm in your corner rooting for you. Okay. Stay well.